We're now going to shift focus here on breaking ground on the big crisis because of what's happening at the Strait of Hormuz. Middle East tensions due to the ongoing war have raised fears of the Strait of Hormuz, a key maritime route being closed, threatening crude oil and LNG supplies for Asian countries, including India and China. Tensions are escalating in the Gulf after an oil facility operated by Saudi Aramco was struck in Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, QatarEnergy has announced a halt in LNG production. Visuals show damage at the refinery site, raising concerns about potential disruptions to crude processing and exports. Striking satellite images show the damage done to Ras Tanura refinery in Saudi Arabia. An oil tanker was reportedly struck off the coast of Oman, while the impact is already being felt in Europe, where gas prices have surged by nearly 50% amid supply concerns. India's Petroleum Ministry is reviewing the fuel supply and strategic reserves to assess any potential fallout from the unfolding situation. Peter Maguire, CEO, Trading.com, joins me live. He's live from Australia at this point. Peter, thank you for speaking to us here on Breaking Ground. Peter, I want to understand from you, what happens if even 20% of Hormuz flows are disrupted?
Well, good afternoon, Vedika. I tell you what, it's broken $80 as far as Brent in the last minute or two. You've got NYMEX crude running over $73 now. So things are starting to escalate, and it's from a timeline perspective. To answer your question, there will be one thing and one thing only, and that will be an increase in price. And price will spike from there. So it's a work in progress to see whether this is going to be contained. But from the lens I'm looking through from Australia, I don't think it's looking like a contained situation. It's actually looking more out of control as each hour rolls.
Shuts for a week. I want to understand from your estimates, what breaks first? The supply chains, the currencies, or the equities?
First off, it'd be supply chains, but from a consumption chain perspective, you're going to see that would only be a matter of hours between each one. And naturally, the market sentiment will be very, very fragile. So equities will take on board a hit. There's no doubting that. And the commodity markets will boom to the upside as far as gold, oil, and probably some of the other energy markets and natural gas. And then you're looking at how do you manage from to try and from your supply side. And you know, these are the countries like China and as you mentioned, India. All of that is going to be across the fabric of the nation. It's going to be quite devastating.
Just stay with me. I want our viewers to understand more about the Strait of Hormuz as tensions continue rising between Iran and its rivals. Global attention is turning to one critical stretch of water, which is the Strait of Hormuz. But why does Hormuz matter? Let's tell you why. Well, this narrow passage, just about 33 kilometers wide, at its narrowest point connects the Persian Gulf to the open ocean through the Gulf of Oman. Now, one narrow waterway carries 20 million barrels of oil every single day. That means roughly 1 in every 5 barrels of oil consumed globally passes through this route. The Strait of Hormuz connects the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. It's just about 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point, one of the world's most important oil choke points, which now Iran is threatening everybody with. It is a choke point and it leads to a massive supply of oil outside the region. Now, major Gulf producers like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait and Iraq depend heavily on this passage for their oil exports. Asia, of course, is the biggest customer of the oil that flows through here. For India, around 53% of its oil imports transit via the Strait of Hormuz. Like I said, nearly 20% of global petroleum consumption moves through here. Let's get you more of these points and statistics. Very important, the total oil flow, million barrels per day. We're talking about 2020, it was 19.1 million barrels per day. Now look at this, it's 20.1 in 2025. This has crude and condensate and petroleum products. Let's also tell you in terms of data and statistics when it comes to exports and imports where countries stand. Now again, this is statistics to do with million barrels per day from 2020 to the first quarter of 25. Those are the statistics. The exporters are Iran, Qatar, Kuwait, Iraq, UAE, Saudi Arabia. So these countries, of course, are being impacted at this point. The importers, of course, also being impacted. If we can also pull up those graphics. Okay, we don't have those graphics for you, but many countries at this point also being impacted. What could this mean? It could mean any disruption, whether due to conflict or blockade, could send oil prices sharply higher. That in turn may push up inflation and increase global shipping costs. Thus, in short, what happens in the Strait of Hormuz doesn't stay there. It impacts the world. And that's the graphic I was looking for. These are the importing countries. You have India as well out there. You have China, South Korea, Japan, Europe, USA, Saudi Arabia, all being impacted by that warning from Iran at this point. Going back to Peter, who's still with us and live from Australia at this point. Peter, at what point does oil become economically destabilizing for Asia?
Well, Vedika, I mean, first off, you've got to look at where that price point and where the pain threshold. If we were to see 90 or 95, that really creates a lot of hurt amongst Main Street. We all understand that. The price is felt in the wallet and the purse by the consumer instantly. Now, if prices are at 110 or 120, that really changes. And the other side, it'll be nearly a war in itself to try and get supply. Because it'll come down to, and I think if you take 20% of the global market out of the supply, then people will be looking at bidding up to try and get access to those barrels. So this is really very dynamic at the moment, how this plays out, and it looks like it's going to take a number of weeks before we get some form of resolution.